They built a $2.3 million luxury clubhouse on my land, then had me arrested for trespassing on my own property. When I confronted the HOA president, she stepped out of her white Mercedes, smirked, and laughed right in my face. "Prove it's yours, country boy." That was the biggest mistake of her life. She had no idea she was facing a retired Army combat engineer who'd spent 20 years blowing up bigger threats than her suburban kingdom. The Olympic pool, tennis courts, marble lobby with crystal chandeliers, all of it sitting pretty on my family's land. The thud of surveyor stakes into my soil was her first warning. The roar of the bulldozer was her nightmare. What happened next? The HOA crumbled, she begged in court, and I walked away with millions. My name is Garrett Westbrook. I'm 52, retired Army combat engineer. For the last 3 years, I've been living on my family's 47-acre ranch in Millfield County, Texas. I came back here after burying my wife, Sarah. Cancer took her in 8 months. The city felt too loud afterward, too full of ghosts, so I returned to the land that's been Westbrook property since 1943, when my great-grandfather homesteaded it after coming home from the Pacific. The original farmhouse still sits under live oaks that were here before electricity reached this part of Texas. My workshop, where I build custom furniture now that Uncle Sam doesn't need me blowing things up, still smells like cedar shavings and motor oil from great-granddad's tools. Honest work in an honest place. At least it was. Trouble started when Willowbrook Estates sprouted next door like expensive weeds. $800,000 McMansions with perfectly manicured lawns and their own private kingdom of rules. I figured live and let live. Them in their glass boxes, me under my century-old oaks. Big mistake. One afternoon, a spotless white Mercedes rolled into my driveway. Out stepped an ice queen in a designer suit, blonde hair sprayed into submission, red manicured nails like claws, perfume so aggressive my old dog retreated to the porch. "Mr. Westbrook." Vivian Blackthorne, Willowbrook HOA president. "We have a problem." I stood there in work boots with sawdust in my beard, wondering what problem she'd invented. "Your property is destroying our investment values." "Those vehicles," she said, pointing at my grandfather's 1967 Chevy and my Afghanistan Jeep. "That primitive workshop. This whole backwoods aesthetic. My residents are losing money because of your lifestyle choices." The way she said backwoods made my combat instincts wake up. "Ma'am, this land's been in my family 80 years. Your subdivision just got here." She smiled like a predator. "Which is exactly why I'm offering you a solution. $180,000 cash. You can relocate somewhere more appropriate for your situation. $180 for 47 acres of prime Texas real estate worth at least $850,000 with highway frontage and creek access." She thought I fell off the turnip truck yesterday. Not interested. Her mask slipped. I'm trying to be neighborly, but property disputes can be so complicated. Boundary surveys, environmental violations, permit compliance, legal bills add up fast for people on fixed veteran incomes. Crystal clear threat. She'd done her homework, knew I lived on disability and woodworking income. "You threatening me, lady?" "Threatening." Cold laugh. "I'm offering opportunity. But if you prefer the difficult path," she shrugged, designer purse swinging. "I didn't build a successful legal practice by accepting no from people who don't understand leverage." She dropped her business card in my dust and drove away in a cloud of exhaust and entitlement. That evening, I found surveyor stakes driven into my property. The next morning, men in orange vests were spray painting coordinates along my fence line. When I demanded answers, they mumbled about boundary verification for development. I pulled the original 1943 homestead deed from great-granddad's safe. Papers thick as cardboard, legal descriptions clear as gospel. But Vivian had already filed a boundary dispute with the county, claiming confusion about property lines. The surveyors wanted a 30-foot strip of my land, just enough for their walking trail and community amenities. This wasn't confusion. This was theft with paperwork. I followed their lead truck when they packed up. Instead of heading to the county offices, it drove straight to Willowbrook Estates. Through binoculars, I watched the crew chief meet Vivian in the clubhouse parking lot. She handed him a thick envelope. That night, I dug into Precision Land Surveying's business license. Incorporated 3 months earlier. Registered owner, Blackthorn Consulting Services. Vivian had created a fake surveying company to manufacture false evidence against me. The next morning, I went to the county clerk with my 1943 deed. Martha Rodriguez, 30 years behind that desk, studied the documents. Your great-granddad filed this clean in 1943. Why the concern? When I explained the survey, her face darkened. Nobody from this office authorized boundary work on your property. Someone's been forging county documents. She helped me request an official GPS survey from the state. The real coordinates were beautiful. My property extended 30 feet further than I'd thought, right through the middle of where Vivian's fake survey claimed HOA land began. I came home with legitimate state documents proving every surveyor's stake was trespassing on my land. That afternoon, I planted no trespassing signs exactly where they belonged, cutting right through Vivian's planned walking trail. By sunset, a dozen bright orange warnings proclaimed the truth. My phone rang within the hour. Remove those signs immediately, Vivian hissed, or I'll have you arrested for harassment. Ma'am, those signs mark my property lines. I've got state surveys to prove it. Silence. Then, we'll see about that. The next morning, a building permit application was stapled to my mailbox. Willowbrook HOA wanted to construct a community wellness center covering the exact area their fake survey tried to steal. Vivian wasn't backing down. She was doubling down. The phony boundary scam was never about a walking trail. She wanted enough of my land to build a whole damn clubhouse. I woke to the sound of war machines. 18-wheelers, cement trucks, excavators, bulldozers with teeth big enough to swallow cars. They were already murdering century-old oaks. Sawdust filled the air so thick I could taste it, mixing with diesel exhaust that burned my throat. I marched to the supervisor in the orange hard hat. Get off my goddamn property. He looked at me like I'd escaped from a mental ward. Sir, we're building the Willowbrook Wellness Center. County permits. All legal. He waved a folder of official-looking papers. Those permits are fraudulent. This is private land. While I spent the morning on hold with bureaucrats, they poured a foundation the size of a basketball court right where Sarah's rose garden used to bloom. The wet concrete smell, mixed with the memory of her perfume still lingering in that soil, made me want to grab the nearest sledgehammer. But 20 years in Army intelligence taught me to follow the money. Dale Morrison, the building inspector who rubber-stamped this disaster, had been 3 months from foreclosure. Medical bills from his wife's cancer surgery drowning him in debt. Then suddenly his mortgage was paid in full, lien satisfied, credit clean. The payment came from Texas Property Solutions, which traced back to Vivian's law firm. She'd bought herself a building inspector. The construction superintendent barking orders. Rick Blackthorn, Vivian's brother-in-law. The whole competitive bidding process was just family dinner conversation. The corruption ran deep. I called Sarah Denver, a property attorney known as a honey badger when it came to land theft. Jesus Christ, Garrett, she said after reviewing my evidence. This isn't a property dispute. This is a RICO case waiting to happen. She filed an emergency cease and desist. Court papers were delivered at 3 p.m. By 3:15, I watched Rick Blackthorn read them, laugh, wad them up, and stuff them in his toolbox next to his sandwich. That's a federal court order, I told him. That's real nice, Grandpa. I got county permits that say I can build whatever I want here. That night, I turned my property into a surveillance operation. Trail cameras, motion sensors, wireless feeds streaming to my laptop. If they kept building illegally, I'd document every shovel of dirt for federal prosecutors. I also learned the wetlands they were destroying required special environmental permits Vivian didn't have. Fines were $50,000 per day, plus criminal charges. Then Vivian went nuclear. Red and blue lights flashed outside my bedroom window. 3 sheriff's cruisers. Deputies with hands on weapons. A warrant for my arrest, based on credible reports of terroristic threats. According to Vivian's sworn complaint, I'd called her at 2 a.m., threatening to blow up the clubhouse using my military explosives training. She had phone records, witness statements, and a recording that sounded like my voice. Complete fabrication, but convincing enough to get me handcuffed in my own driveway while neighbors filmed. 12 hours in county lockup gave me time to think. Sarah Denver bailed me out and showed me the depth of the frame job. The witness was a security guard with assault convictions and a history of perjury for hire. The audio was digitally manipulated from my woodworking YouTube videos. I went to the FBI field office in Austin. Agent Rebecca Torres was interested in the voice manipulation tech. Resources beyond simple local corruption. My old Army buddy Jake Morrison, a digital forensic specialist, traced the software license to a Houston company that invoiced $15,000 to Blackthorn Consulting the day before my arrest. The metadata showed the file was created on a computer at Kellerman Price and Associates, Vivian's law firm. Then came the bombshell. Digging through corporate filings at 2 a.m., I called the Texas Secretary of State. Willowbrook Estates HOA filing from 2021 was rejected. Missing signatures, improper notarization, no registered agent. They never resubmitted. The entity was never legally incorporated. For 3 years, 200 families have been paying dues to an organization that existed only in Vivian's imagination. Every rule, every fee, every threat built on a lie. Financial records showed $2. $3 million in special assessments vanished into shell companies owned by Vivian. She'd convinced banks to finance construction based on projected values after luxury amenities, planning to pocket the difference when the fake HOA collapsed. The illegal HOA meant every permit was void. Every loan was fraudulent. Every brick laid on my property belonged to me by default. I didn't just own my land. I owned their entire $2. $3 million clubhouse. The FBI got warrants for wire fraud, bank fraud, RICO conspiracy. They timed arrests for maximum impact. Vivian's grand opening ribbon cutting with media, politicians, and 200 residents present. 3 days before the event, surveillance caught Jerry Walsh, a professional agitator, approaching me at the hardware store with a plan to stage a violent protest that would make me look like the dangerous veteran Vivian had portrayed. We had footage of him meeting Vivian's lawyers, payments from her accounts. The FBI let the setup proceed, recording everything. The morning of the grand opening, the illegal clubhouse buzzed with champagne, caviar, red carpet, television crews. I watched from my property line in my dress uniform, medals gleaming. Agent Torres stood beside me. At 10:30, Walsh tried to hand me threatening signs. I refused, loud enough for FBI microphones. At 11 o'clock, Vivian took the microphone. "Welcome to the crown jewel of Willowbrook Estates." I stepped forward with documents. "Mrs. Blackthorn, I have questions about the legal authority for this project." Cameras swiveled. I handed her federal court papers. This facility was built on private property without authority, using funds embezzled through a fraudulent HOA that was never incorporated. Agent Torres stepped up. "Mrs. Blackthorn, you're under arrest for wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering." Handcuffs clicked. Agents moved through the crowd, arresting Dale Morrison, Rick Blackthorn, Jerry Walsh. I took the microphone. "This clubhouse was built on my land with $2. $3 million stolen from your HOA dues. Every brick belongs to me. I'm prepared to sell it back to the community for $4. $7 million, with proceeds to veterans' mental health and reimbursing defrauded residents." 6 months later, Vivian received 18 months in federal prison for $7 million in restitution. Her co-conspirators got 6 months to 2 years. Residents recovered their money plus damages through a class action. I donated 30 acres for the Sarah Westbrook Memorial Conservation Center and turned the clubhouse into an education facility. The remaining land became a veterans woodworking program, helping combat vets transition to civilian life. Every month, a dozen veterans gather in my great-grandfather's workshop to build furniture, share stories, and remember that honor still matters. The program has helped dozens find work, housing, hope. Some started businesses. One wrote that it saved his life. The legal precedent led to the Westbrook Act in Texas, requiring HOA incorporation verification, background checks for board members, public databases, disclosures for home sales, and bank checks before construction loans. Last month, I remarried Dr. Patricia Martinez, my VA psychiatrist, under the same live oaks where my great-grandfather built his first house. The reception was held in the Conservation Center. Jake Morrison was my best man. Agent Torres brought her family. Sarah Denver gave the toast. As the sun sets over land that's been in my family for 80 years, I sit on the porch listening to honest work from the Veterans Workshop, laughter of children learning about conservation, and the peaceful quiet of a community healed from corruption. Vivian Blackthorne thought she could steal my land and destroy my life. Instead, she gave me the chance to build something better than either of us imagined.